Have you ever felt that quiet, unspoken bond with a pet? A connection so deep that it seems to transcend words. That feeling when your dog greets you at the door with uncontainable joy. Or your cat curls up beside you on the couch just when you need comfort the most. These moments are more than cute or comforting, they are profound reminders of the love, trust, and companionship the pets bring into our lives. They do not just fill our homes, they fill our hearts. From the first wag of a tail to the gentle nuzzle of a nose, pets teach us about loyalty, empathy, and unconditional love. They witness our highs and our lows, never judging, never asking for anything in return beyond a little affection. Think about the quiet mornings when a dog rests its head on your lap, or the evenings when a cat purrs softly, letting you know that you are not alone. These small gestures carry enormous emotional weight. They remind us that love does not always need words. But with love comes the inevitable fear of loss. Many of us have faced the heartbreak of watching a beloved pet age, fall ill, or take their last breath. In those moments, the house feels emptier, the silence heavier, and a profound question rises in our hearts. What happens to them after they are gone? It is a question that has lingered through centuries, across cultures, and through every person who has loved an animal deeply. And while we may not have all the answers, we can explore these questions through both personal reflection and timeless wisdom. Today, we are going to take a journey into understanding the significance of our pets, their place in our lives, and what might await them beyond this world. We will look at insights from sacred texts, explore philosophical perspectives, and reflect on real-life stories of pets who have changed the lives of those around them. Along the way, you may find comfort, clarity, and even hope about the bond you share with your furry, feathered, or scaled companions. If you have ever experienced the joy of a pet's companionship, or the heartache of losing one, this video is for you. Together, we will explore not just the love they give, but the ways they impact our hearts, our families, and perhaps even our understanding of life and eternity. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss any of our future explorations into the mysteries of life, love, and faith. And now, let us embark on this journey to discover the incredible bond between humans and their cherished pets. Losing a pet is unlike losing anything else in life. It is not just the absence of a companion. It is the sudden emptiness of a presence that has been constant, comforting, and unconditional. For many of us, pets are family. They are the ones who greet us at the door with wagging tails or gentle purrs, the silent witnesses to our happiest moments and our deepest sorrows. When they leave, the void they leave behind is real and profound, often catching us by surprise with its intensity. Think about the routines that once brought joy: morning walks, feeding times, or quiet evenings curled up on the couch. Those routines vanish, leaving behind reminders of a life once shared. The house feels quieter, corners feel emptier, and even simple gestures, like reaching down for a paw that is no longer there, evoke a sharp pang of loss. Grief for a pet is valid, and it deserves recognition. It is not just an animal, it is a loyal friend, a confidant, a source of comfort, and a constant presence that has woven itself into the fabric of our lives. The emotions tied to losing a pet are multifaceted. There is sadness, yes, but also a deep sense of longing, guilt, and sometimes even anger. Questions arise. Did I do enough? Could I have made their life better? Will I ever feel joy like this again? These questions are natural, reflecting the depth of the bond shared between human and animal. Many pet owners find that the grieving process mirrors that of losing a close family member, because in truth, pets occupy a similar emotional space. They become part of our hearts, shaping our days and offering unwavering love without conditions or expectations. Yet amid the grief, there is also room for reflection and gratitude. Remembering the ways they enriched our lives, whether through small daily gestures, companionship during difficult times, or simply their joyful presence can bring comfort. Many find solace in sharing memories, creating keepsakes, or speaking about their pets openly, validating the emotions that come with loss. Pets teach us about love, loyalty, and empathy, and even in their absence, those lessons remain. If you have experienced this kind of loss, know that your feelings are valid and understood. You are not alone in your grief. In this video, we will explore not only the emotional journey of losing a pet, but also insights into what faith, philosophy, and reflection tell us about the place of animals in our lives and perhaps beyond. Together, we will navigate the pain, celebrate the memories, and seek hope that the bond you shared can endure in ways we may not fully comprehend. Long before humans walked the earth, before cities rose and civilizations took shape, the world was already a masterpiece in the making, a carefully crafted stage where life would flourish in harmony and beauty. And in the midst of this grand design, God placed the animals, each one formed with intention, each one reflecting a part of the Creator's imagination, care, and delight. The story begins in the opening chapter of Genesis, where the heavens and the earth were brought into being, and life itself began to pulse through creation. In Genesis, we read that God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kinds, livestock, creeping things, and beasts of the earth." And it was so. God saw that it was good. These were not passing words, spoken casually. They were the proclamation of a universe in which every living creature held value, purpose, and place. Imagine the richness of this original design. The oceans teeming with creatures of every shape and size. The skies filled with birds whose wings carry them gracefully above the land. The forests alive with the rustle of beasts both great and small. Every animal was created with care, each fulfilling a role in the intricate tapestry of life. They were not afterthoughts, accidental byproducts of creation, or merely scenery to enhance the human experience. They were central to God's vision, each reflecting His goodness in ways that humans could witness, touch, and experience. When God looked upon them, He saw not imperfection, not random chance, but beings that were good, imbued with life and energy, a reflection of the divine creativity that had set the universe in motion. As humans, we often think of ourselves as the pinnacle of creation. Yet in those earliest moments, animals had already been given life, roaming the earth in harmony with the rhythms of the world. The lion and the lamb, the eagle and the deer, the great whale in the sea, all were part of a balanced system, a living network that spoke to the intelligence and care behind their creation. Animals were given instincts to survive, behaviors that ensured they could flourish, and beauty that inspired awe and wonder. In every roar, every chirp, every gentle nuzzle, the fingerprint of a creator was evident, a reminder that life itself was not random, but intentional, designed to thrive and bring joy to those who could witness it. The Bible recounts several stories that highlight how animals were woven into the narrative of life and faith. Noah's Ark illustrates that when humanity faced destruction, God's concern extended not only to people but to every kind of living creature, instructing Noah to preserve animals alongside his family, showing that the survival of these creatures was part of His divine plan. The story of Jonah and the great fish, and Balaam's donkey, further demonstrate that animals were not merely passive participants in the world, but could play active roles in guiding, teaching, and revealing the power and wisdom of God. Even Jesus, in His teachings, reminded followers of God's care for the sparrows, emphasizing that no creature is too small to escape divine notice. This understanding reshapes how we view our pets and the grief we feel when they leave us. If animals were created with intention and delight, and if they were considered good in the eyes of their Creator, then their lives are more than fleeting moments, they are expressions of purpose and beauty. The bond we share with our pets, the joy they bring, and the comfort they provide are reflections of the original design of creation itself, a reminder that God's love extends to all living beings. The wag of a tail, the warmth of a purring cat, the gentle nuzzle of a horse, they are echoes of a world made to be good, a world in which life was meant to flourish alongside humans, not apart from them. Consider how this perspective transforms our understanding of loss. When a beloved pet passes away, it is not merely an absence. It is a pause in a story that is part of a much larger, intentional design. These creatures, created with care and purpose, mattered from the very beginning. They were not accidents, nor were they temporary distractions from human life. They were part of a divine vision, a living testament to the goodness that exists in the world. The grief we feel is a reflection of the significance they hold in our lives, a recognition that life, in all its forms, is precious and meaningful. As we reflect on the intentional creation of animals, we begin to see that the love and bond we share with our pets are deeply rooted in the original design of the world. These creatures, formed with care and delight, enter our lives to teach us about loyalty, companionship, and the unspoken depth of connection that transcends words. They are living reminders that we are stewards of a creation designed to be good, entrusted with the care of beings who reflect God's creativity and purpose. Every bark, every chirp, every gentle touch carries a piece of the divine, a glimpse of the harmony that once existed in Eden and that God longs to restore. So as we honor our pets and reflect on their place in our hearts, we recognize that their lives were not random, and their presence in the world was not meaningless. From the very first moment of creation, animals were included in God's plan, seen as good, and given a place of importance in the unfolding story of life. Their lives are intertwined with ours, their love a reflection of the intentional care that brought them into being, and their memory a testament to the goodness that exists at the heart of creation. In understanding this, we find comfort, hope, and a deeper appreciation for the companions who have walked beside us, leaving paw prints not just on the floor of our homes, but on the very fabric of our lives. Long before humans fully understood their place in the world, animals were woven intricately into the stories that shaped faith, morality, and human understanding of the divine. They were not merely background details or silent observers. They were participants in a grand narrative that demonstrated God's care, wisdom, and purpose. Take the story of Noah's Ark, for example, where humanity faced the brink of destruction. The flood was not only a reckoning for human sin, but also a moment that underscored the value of all creation. God commanded Noah to preserve every living creature, instructing him to bring pairs of every kind into the ark, ensuring their survival alongside human life. In this act, the animals were not incidental, they were a central part of God's plan, a reminder that creation itself holds intrinsic value. The care given to these creatures reflects the same deliberate attention found in the very first days of creation, when each living being was called good and given a purpose within the harmony of the world. The narrative of Jonah further illustrates the pivotal roles that animals play in divine plans, revealing lessons that extend far beyond the surface of the story. When Jonah fled from his calling, it was a great fish that became the instrument of his reflection and eventual obedience, swallowing him in a way that forced both introspection and transformation. This extraordinary intervention shows that animals are not mere spectators of human life. They can act as agents of guidance, teaching, and even salvation within the story of humanity's relationship with God. Similarly, the account of Balaam's donkey presents an instance where a humble animal becomes the voice of reason, perceiving danger that the human cannot and speaking, in its own way, to reveal truth. The donkey's ability to see and act according to divine direction underscores that animals possess an awareness and a role that transcends human expectations, making them significant participants in the unfolding of God's will. Even in the teachings of Jesus, the presence of animals carries profound meaning, illustrating divine care that extends to every corner of creation. When Jesus speaks of sparrows, highlighting that not one falls to the ground without God's notice, he conveys a truth that resonates with anyone who has loved and lost a pet. These tiny creatures, often overlooked by humans, are intimately cared for by God, a reassurance that all life is observed, valued, and sustained. This connection between humans and animals, reflected in Scripture, elevates the relationship we share with our pets from mere companionship to something sacred, a reflection of the broader divine care that pervades creation. The sparrow, the donkey, the great fish, the animals aboard Noah's Ark all illustrate that animals are active participants in the divine narrative, carrying significance in ways both obvious and subtle. Understanding these stories allows us to see our pets not just as creatures of comfort or entertainment, but as living beings whose presence in our lives mirrors the intentionality found in these biblical accounts. The same God who preserved every species on the ark, who used a fish to guide Jonah, and who enabled a donkey to speak truth, watches over the animals in our lives, valuing them with the same intentionality and care. When we lose a pet, the grief we experience is a reflection of the depth of their role in our own stories. Just as the animals in these biblical events were integral to God's plans, so too are the pets who walk with us, teach us, and offer companionship, a meaningful part of our journey through life. They are not incidental. They are part of a narrative that intertwines love, purpose, and divine attention. Moreover, these biblical stories offer more than historical or spiritual insight. They provide a framework for understanding the emotional bonds we share with animals. Just as Jonah and Balaam interacted with animals in ways that affected outcomes, decisions, and divine lessons, our lives are shaped by the presence of our pets. They bring joy in times of sorrow, comfort in moments of despair, and a reminder that we are part of a larger story in which every creature has significance. The lessons embedded in these narratives highlight the value of attentiveness, care, and respect for all living beings, reflecting a world in which harmony between humans and animals is both celebrated and sanctified. In contemplating these accounts, we begin to recognize a pattern of divine intentionality that extends from the earliest moments of creation to the intimate relationships we hold today. Animals, in Scripture and in life, are never random or trivial. They carry meaning, influence events, and enrich our understanding of God's love and provision. The ark, the great fish, the speaking donkey, and the sparrows all serve as reminders that the natural world is alive with purpose, that animals are participants in the grand narrative of existence, and that our bonds with them reflect the same care, attention, and intentionality that God places on all of creation. As we remember our pets, grieve their loss, or celebrate their companionship, we can see them through this lens of significance. They are not merely part of our daily routines. They are living echoes of the divine narrative, partners in a story that spans both the spiritual and earthly realms. Recognizing their roles in biblical events deepens our appreciation for the presence of animals in our lives today, reminding us that love, care, and attention toward our pets are not just emotional gestures, they are reflections of a sacred pattern woven through creation, a pattern that invites us to honor, cherish, and find meaning in the companions who share our journey. In the earliest chapters of Genesis, The Hebrew word nephesh emerges as a fascinating thread connecting humans and animals in the tapestry of creation. A word that means living being, signifying life itself in its most profound and essential form. When God breathed life into the earth, He called for living beings birds, beasts, fish, and humans alike, and each was recognized as a nephesh, a creature imbued with vitality and purpose. This shared term speaks to the deep connection between all life, a reminder that animals and humans alike are not mere accidents, but intentional creations, crafted with care and woven into the living fabric of the world. From the first heartbeat of a lion to the quiet breath of a lamb, every nephesh is a testament to the divine artistry that sets life in motion, a reflection of the Creator's hand in both the grandeur of wilderness and the intimacy of the home. Yet as we explore this connection, we begin to see the distinction that Scripture draws between human life and animal life, a nuance that is as significant as it is profound. While animals share in the gift of nephesh, humans alone are made in the image of God, carrying within them an eternal soul that surpasses the temporal existence of the body. Genesis tells us that when God breathed into Adam the breath of life, humanity became a living soul in a way that animals, though cherished and significant, were not. This does not diminish the worth of animals. Rather, it underscores the unique role of humans as caretakers, stewards, and companions within a creation that was already alive with intention and beauty. Humans are called to reflect the divine, to engage in a partnership with God that includes the care of animals, recognizing in them the same life force, the same nephesh, that binds all living beings to the earth and to each other. The presence of nephesh in both animals and humans invites reflection on the emotional bonds we share with our pets, a topic that resonates deeply with anyone who has experienced the profound love and grief that comes with these relationships. Animals, as nephesh, possess the capacity to live, to feel, and to interact in ways that reveal the beauty and complexity of life itself. When a dog rests its head on your lap, when a cat curls beside you in quiet companionship, when a bird sings at dawn, these moments are not incidental. They are expressions of living souls, echoes of the divine vitality infused into every creature. The grief we feel when a pet passes away, then, is not a trivial emotion. It is the recognition that a fellow nephesh, a being of life and love, has left our midst, leaving an emptiness that echoes the sacredness of their existence. At the same time, the distinction between human and animal souls offers insight into the eternal nature of our relationships and the hope that many hold regarding life beyond the temporal world. While humans possess eternal souls made in God's image, the Bible does not dismiss the significance of animals or the possibility that they may have a place within the divine plan that transcends earthly life. The inclusion of animals in stories of redemption, guidance, and teaching, from Noah's Ark to Balaam's donkey, from the great fish to Jesus' reminders about sparrows, suggests that the lives of animals are observed, valued, and meaningful. Their existence is intertwined with ours, and the emotional bonds we share reflect the deep care with which God has placed life in our world, revealing a design in which joy, companionship, and mutual dependency are celebrated and honored. Consider, too, the spiritual resonance of nephesh as it applies to our daily experiences with pets. Every purr, every wag of the tail, every gentle nuzzle is a living expression of the vitality God has breathed into creation, a reminder that life in all its forms is both beautiful and sacred. When we love our pets, care for them, and grieve for them, we are participating in the recognition of nephesh, acknowledging the sacred pulse of life that connects all living beings. The emotional depth of these bonds speaks to the intentionality of creation itself. Animals are not random companions, but co-inhabitants of a world carefully designed to reflect goodness and interconnection. Our interactions with them are therefore not only matters of affection, but also reflections of a divine order that values all life. As humans, made in God's image, we are called to steward this life with wisdom and compassion. Understanding Nefesh illuminates the sacred duty to care for the animals around us, recognizing that while they may not possess eternal souls in the same way humans do, they embody life, purpose, and the creative intent of the divine. In this context, the grief we feel at losing a pet, the joy we experience in their companionship, and the lessons they teach us about loyalty, patience, and unconditional love are not mere happenstance. They are part of a broader, intentional narrative that encompasses both human and animal life. Ultimately, the concept of Nefesh deepens our understanding of the interwoven nature of life, highlighting both the shared vitality between humans and animals and the unique eternal potential of human souls. It invites us to treasure the bonds we hold with our pets, to honor their place in the world, and to recognize in them a reflection of the living Creator. Each Nefesh, whether it walks on 2 legs or 4, swims in the seas, or flies in the skies, is a living testament to the care, creativity, and love that brought the universe into being, a reminder that life itself is sacred, interconnected, and worthy of respect and reverence. In cherishing our pets, in grieving their loss, and in celebrating their presence, we engage with the profound mystery of Nefesh, connecting with life in all its forms and finding meaning in the shared journey of existence. As we continue to explore the profound connection between humans, animals, and the divine, the words of Romans 8:19-21 emerge like a beacon, offering a vision that stretches far beyond the confines of earthly existence, into the promise of restoration that encompasses all creation. The passage speaks of creation itself waiting in eager anticipation, longing for the unveiling of the children of God, yearning for liberation from its bondage to decay, and hoping for the freedom and glory that will belong to those who are redeemed. In this vision, the entire cosmos, including every living creature, from the smallest sparrow to the most majestic whale, participates in a story that is far larger than individual lifespans, far deeper than human understanding, and imbued with a hope that transcends the limitations of our present reality. The implication is profound. If creation waits for restoration, then animals, whose lives are interwoven with our own, may also share in a future that is renewed, free from the constraints of mortality, pain, and the imperfections that mar the present world. Imagine, for a moment, the animals in our own lives, pets who greet us with joyful barks, purring companions who curl beside us in times of sorrow, the gentle rhythm of a horse's hooves, or the quiet presence of birds perched outside a window, all participating in this grand narrative of longing and anticipation. Romans 8 invites us to consider that their existence is not peripheral. It is central to God's redemptive plan. Just as humans await the fullness of redemption, so too does the natural world yearn for a time when all decay is reversed, when suffering is no more, and when life is restored to its intended harmony. This vision transforms how we perceive the loss of a pet, the impermanence of life, and the grief that so often accompanies these experiences, offering a lens of hope through which even the pain of parting can be understood as part of a larger story of renewal and restoration. This anticipation of restoration aligns beautifully with the creation narratives we have explored. From the first days of Genesis, when God called each animal good, to the moments in biblical history when animals played pivotal roles in guiding, protecting, and communicating divine truths, the same God who saw each creature as part of his perfect design, who preserved every kind in Noah's ark, and who allowed the donkey to speak truth to Balaam, is the God who promises ultimate restoration. The continuity of this vision assures us that the care God has shown throughout history is not limited to the temporal realm. It extends into eternity. It is a reminder that animals are not merely transient companions, their value measured only by the brief time they share with us, but rather They are participants in a divine promise that stretches across time and space. Linking creation, humanity, and eternity in a single, unfolding story. The passage in Romans also encourages us to reflect on the profound interconnection between humans and animals, a connection that is mirrored in the way creation itself responds to the redemption of humankind. The anticipation of freedom and glory for the children of God implies that creation, every tree, every river, every mountain, and every living being is attuned to the unfolding of God's plan. Animals, as integral components of this creation, are caught up in the same wave of hope, partaking in a cosmic longing that mirrors our own desires for wholeness, love, and continuity. This understanding reshapes how we view our relationships with pets and other animals, elevating them from simple companionship to a shared journey toward restoration, an echo of the divine harmony that will one day envelop all creation. Consider how this vision might transform the way we grieve. Remember and honor our pets. When a beloved dog or cat passes away, when a bird that sang at dawn falls silent, the sorrow we feel is not the end of their story, but a chapter within a larger narrative of hope and renewal. Romans 8 reassures us that creation itself is not abandoned to decay, but is held in the tender care of a God who sees, values, and ultimately restores every living thing. The animals we love are not peripheral extras in the story of life. They are living threads in the tapestry of creation, threads that are woven into a promise of restoration, beauty, and eternal purpose. Their presence in our lives reflects the broader truth that all life is interconnected, and that love, care, and reverence for animals resonate with the divine intention that underpins existence itself. Moreover, the longing expressed in Romans 8 reflects a patience, a quiet expectation, that mirrors our own hopes and prayers for the creatures we have loved and lost. Just as the world awaits the full revelation of God's children, so too might our pets be part of this unfolding glory, participating in the ultimate restoration where all things are made new. The passage encourages us to hold on to hope, to trust that the grief we experience, the bonds we cherish, and the love we share with our pets are not fleeting or insignificant, but part of a story that is eternal in scope. In this sense, Romans 8 provides a spiritual framework for understanding our relationships with animals, a lens through which their lives are seen as purposeful, valued, and integral to the narrative of redemption. Through this perspective, every wag of a tail, every gentle nuzzle, every chirp and purr becomes infused with a sense of divine significance, a reminder that animals are participants in a creation that awaits restoration, a creation that longs for the day when harmony and love will be fully realized. Romans 8, 1921 paints a picture not only of human redemption but of a cosmos alive with hope, a universe in which animals, alongside humans, are part of God's ultimate plan, sharing in the promise of renewal, and inviting us to see their lives and our bonds with them as reflections of the eternal, unending care of the Creator. In the unfolding story of faith and hope, there is a striking picture painted by the ancient prophets and visionaries, a picture that pulls together the threads of human longing and divine promise. Isaiah, one of the great voices of the Old Testament, spoke of a time when the natural order would no longer be ruled by fear or competition but by harmony and peace. He described scenes almost impossible for the human mind to imagine in its fullness: wolves dwelling with lambs, leopards lying down beside young goats, and even the most vulnerable child able to play safely near a serpent's den. These were not meant as mere poetic musings, but as glimpses into a restored creation, a promise that what was once broken would be healed in a way that encompassed not only humanity, but the entire living world. The very animals that symbolize conflict and survival in the present order are recast in the prophecy as symbols of reconciliation, suggesting that in the renewed creation, the fabric of life itself will be rewoven with threads of peace. This vision continues in Isaiah's later words, where he describes a new heaven and a new earth, places where predators and prey no longer exist as adversaries. The lion, so often emblematic of strength and danger, is portrayed as content with straw like the ox, while the serpent, often linked with fear, no longer causes harm. These images echo with a deep resonance, reminding us that the divine promise of renewal is not restricted to human salvation alone, but extends to every corner of creation. The natural world, long groaning under the weight of decay and conflict, is included in the sweeping embrace of restoration. Isaiah's imagery stirs the heart because it addresses a yearning that lies deep within us, the longing for a reality where the divisions between beings are dissolved and all life coexists in peace. It is a reminder that the story of redemption has always been larger than human destiny. It is the story of the universe itself being brought back into alignment with its creator. The vision finds an echo in the New Testament, where John's revelation offers its own glimpses into heavenly realities. In one striking scene, John describes the heavens opening and a rider appearing on a white horse, faithful and true, leading the armies of heaven, also mounted on white horses. This detail, though often overlooked, suggests something profound. If horses exist in that realm, majestic and pure, then it hints that animals are not absent from eternity, but are part of its wonder. The heavenly horses serve not only as symbolic carriers of divine justice, but also as reminders that creation itself has a place in the story of eternity. Their presence lifts the imagination, inviting us to consider that perhaps animals are woven into the eternal plan in ways beyond our comprehension. Just as Isaiah described peace among the creatures of earth, John presents creatures in the heavens. And together these visions suggest a continuity that transcends the boundaries of life as we know it. When we hold these prophecies side by side, a larger narrative emerges, one in which creation is not discarded but transformed. The animals, often overlooked in theological discussions, become signposts pointing toward the breadth of God's restorative work. They remind us that eternity is not simply a realm of disembodied spirits but a renewal of creation itself, where the harmony between humanity, animals, and the Creator is restored. The images of wolves with lambs and horses in heaven speak of a world in which nothing is wasted, nothing forgotten, and every part of creation finds its rightful place. They bring comfort to those who have loved animals, to those who have wondered whether their companions might have a place in the life to come, and to those who have felt the sorrow of seeing the natural world marked by suffering and struggle. The promises woven into Scripture do not give every detail, but they offer enough to stir the imagination and awaken hope. It is significant that these visions are not presented as abstract ideas, but as deeply embodied realities. The prophets and seers did not speak of vague concepts of peace, but of tangible creatures we recognize: wolves, lambs, lions, oxen, serpents, horses. This concreteness grounds the hope in something that resonates with our experience of life, for it takes the very creatures we know, creatures that populate our world and shape our understanding of nature, and places them within the framework of renewal. The transformation they undergo becomes a sign of what is possible for the whole creation. If the lion can eat straw like the ox, if the child can play without fear, if the horse can gallop through the heavens, then truly nothing is beyond redemption. The story told through these images is one of profound healing, a healing that does not erase the world we know but reimagines it in the fullness of divine intention. These passages also speak to the interconnectedness of all life. Humanity is not restored in isolation, nor is salvation limited to the spiritual condition of the soul. Instead, the Scriptures reveal a vision in which the redemption of humanity and the renewal of creation are intertwined. Our fate and the fate of the animals are bound together because we share the same creation, the same groaning under brokenness, and the same hope for renewal. The peace of the wolf and the lamb is not separate from the peace of humanity, but part of the same divine tapestry. To ignore the animals in these prophecies is to miss part of the richness of the vision. The presence of horses in the heavenly scene reinforces the truth that eternity is not devoid of the natural but suffused with it, renewed and transformed in ways that exceed our imagination. Ultimately, these scriptural glimpses invite us to hope with greater breadth and depth. They remind us that when we envision eternity, we need not limit our imagination to human concerns alone, but can embrace a vision where every part of creation is restored to harmony. The wolf lying down with the lamb, the lion eating straw, the child playing in safety, and the horses riding forth from heaven. All of these images encourage us to lift our eyes beyond the brokenness of the present world and to trust in the promise of renewal that includes all life. In their beauty and mystery, they beckon us toward a future where creation itself sings with joy, where animals and humans alike share in the peace of the Creator, and where the story of redemption is revealed in its fullest, most wondrous form. C.S. Lewis, with his ability to weave imagination and theology together, once suggested a vision that has captivated countless hearts: the idea that animals, particularly pets, could share eternity with their human companions. He did not see this as a sentimental indulgence, but as something that fits naturally into the larger tapestry of God's restorative plan. If creation itself is to be renewed, if the brokenness of the world is to be healed, then surely the creatures who have walked so faithfully beside us might also find their place in that eternal restoration. Lewis imagined that the bond between humans and their pets is not something trivial, but rather a reflection of something deeper, a fragment of divine intention that mirrors God's relationship with His creation. In this way, he gave voice to a hope many have quietly carried, that the love we share with animals is not fleeting, but part of a much greater story. When you think of a loyal dog that has waited by the door each evening, or a cat that has curled silently on the edge of your bed, or even the gentle movements of a horse that seems to understand more than words can express, there is a sense that these creatures do not simply exist alongside us, but with us, woven into the fabric of our lives. Lewis believed that because humans are created in the image of God, our relationships with animals could act as channels through which God's grace extends. Just as humans are drawn into communion with the Creator, so too might animals be drawn into communion through their closeness to humanity. This does not mean that animals on their own achieve what humans do, but rather that the deep bonds of trust, loyalty, and affection might serve as bridges, carrying them with us into the life to come. This perspective does not stand isolated, for it echoes the vision found in Scripture itself. Isaiah paints pictures of wolves dwelling with lambs, of leopards lying peacefully beside goats, of a world transformed where danger is dissolved and harmony is restored. These passages do not describe heaven in abstract terms, but rather use images of animals living in peace with one another and with humankind to illustrate the fullness of God's renewal. The same imagery appears in Revelation, where heavenly horses are described as part of the divine army, majestic and pure, participating in the unfolding of God's plan. Such depictions suggest that animals are not excluded from the divine narrative but play a role in expressing what renewal will look like when all things are made new. Lewis' reflections breathe life into this vision, for he saw pets as companions who are shaped by their closeness to humans. A wild creature may follow only instinct, but a pet begins to live in relationship, learning patterns of love, trust, and even sacrifice. In this way, they are touched by human life, and if human life is destined for redemption, then the creatures shaped by that relationship may also share in its fruits. It is not a fanciful idea when viewed through the lens of God's promise to restore all creation. For Paul himself wrote in Romans that creation groans, waiting eagerly for the revealing of the children of God. If creation waits, then the animals within it are included in that longing, yearning for liberation alongside humanity. Imagine for a moment walking into a world renewed, where every tear has been wiped away and every scar of loss has been healed. Would it not make sense that the faithful companions who carried pieces of our burdens, who shared our joys and sorrows without judgment, might also appear there? Lewis did not claim to have final answers, but his vision was meant to stir the imagination, to help believers see that eternity is not sterile or abstract but filled with the richness of relationships, perfected in God's presence. In such a place, the love we have given and received would not be discarded but magnified, pointing us always back to the Creator who designed love itself. The beauty of Lewis' idea is that it connects human longing with divine promise. For those who have lost a beloved pet, the thought of reunion is not merely about satisfying emotion, but about witnessing the scope of God's mercy. If redemption is truly cosmic, if nothing good is ever wasted in God's economy, then the joy and loyalty of animals could very well be preserved and transformed in eternity. This does not mean every animal in existence must appear, but rather that those relationships infused with love, shaped by the covenantal bond between human and creature, may continue as part of the great restoration. In this sense, Lewis gave us a way of seeing our pets not as temporary comforts, but as living signs of God's care for creation. Each wagging tail, each gentle purr, each moment of companionship becomes a glimpse of what the new creation could hold. When Isaiah and John describe animals in their visions, it is not only symbolic but also suggestive of the truth that God's redemption encompasses more than we can imagine. Animals are not accidental, nor are they disposable. They are part of the beauty and diversity of creation. And in the renewed creation, that beauty will not vanish but will be fulfilled. So when we reflect on whether pets might share eternity with us, Lewis invites us not to think in terms of sentimentality but in terms of God's larger plan. The love between human and animal is not wasted, for love is never wasted in God's kingdom. Instead, it may be part of the unfolding story of restoration, where all creation is drawn into the harmony of God's will. In this vision, the companionship we have cherished is not erased but lifted into a higher reality, where it continues to glorify the Creator who made all things good. There is a thread that runs through all human experience, one that is woven with grief, longing, and the fragile hope that pain does not have the final word. When hearts break under the weight of loss, whether it is the absence of a loved one, the silence left behind by a cherished companion, or the shadows of personal struggles that cannot easily be named, the ache often feels unbearable. Yet within the pages of Scripture, a quiet promise is spoken again and again, offering assurance that such sorrow is neither unnoticed nor meaningless. It is here that we are told God draws near to those who are crushed in spirit, that divine presence is not distant but profoundly close when tears fall. This vision is not abstract but personal, a reminder that grief is not endured in isolation, but accompanied by one who knows it more deeply than we ever could. The power of these assurances comes not simply from words, but from the way they touch the deepest human fears. There is something haunting about mourning the sense that it is endless, that the wound may never close, that life has been permanently diminished. Yet Scripture does not leave the faithful stranded in that uncertainty. It speaks of a time when every tear will be wiped away, not as a metaphor for forgetfulness, but as a promise of transformation. The world as it is marked by pain, separation, and the frailty of human existence is not the world as it will always be. In Revelation's vision of the future, there is a great reversal. Mourning is silenced, pain is erased, and death itself loses its dominion. Such an image is more than comfort. It is a reorientation, a new lens through which to see the temporary nature of suffering and the lasting weight of hope. What makes these promises so compelling is that they speak into the rawness of life. They do not deny the depth of pain or urge those who grieve to simply move on. Instead, they acknowledge the realness of sorrow while offering a horizon beyond it. To say that God is close to the broken-hearted is to affirm that grief is not ignored but held in the presence of divine compassion. It is an intimate assurance, as if the Creator leans close enough to hear the faintest sob, close enough to carry the burden that feels too heavy for human shoulders. Such nearness is not meant to erase mourning but to dignify it, to make space for lament while quietly declaring that lament will not be the final chapter. For those who have stood beside hospital beds, gravesides, or the empty places in their homes where laughter once echoed, these words do not function as abstract theology. They become lifelines. They offer the courage to endure nights when sleep will not come, days when the absence is so loud it drowns out everything else, and moments when questions rise with no apparent answers. The biblical vision does not eliminate the human struggle, but transforms it with a steady reminder. This present sorrow, no matter how deep, is temporary in light of eternity. The imagery of God wiping away tears is both tender and authoritative, suggesting that grief is not only acknowledged but actively undone. It portrays the end of pain not as an escape but as restoration, where what has been fractured will be made whole again. This understanding ties seamlessly into the broader story of faith, where suffering and redemption are never far apart. The same God who walks with the brokenhearted is the God who promises a future where brokenness is finally healed. It is a narrative that resists despair while refusing to dismiss it. Within this tension lies the profound hope that grief is not wasted. Each sorrow, carried in the divine presence, is met with compassion now and with restoration in the world to come. The heart-ache of the present moment, as unbearable as it may feel, is framed within a story that stretches beyond human comprehension. A story in which love outlasts loss and joy rises where mourning once dwelled. There is also a communal dimension to this vision, for grief is rarely born alone. Communities gather in mourning, sharing stories, offering embraces, and sitting together in silence when words fail. The promises of Scripture do not only apply to the individual heart, but to entire peoples who suffer loss and long for healing. When Revelation speaks of a world without pain, it speaks to all who carry burdens of injustice, oppression, and devastation. It envisions a creation where not only personal wounds but collective wounds are mended. In this way, the hope of no more mourning is as much about justice as it is about comfort, as much about restoration for communities as for individuals. This larger vision allows people of faith to hold grief and hope in the same hand. To grieve deeply is to love deeply, and such love will always ache when it encounters loss. Yet hope does not diminish that ache, it redeems it. When the heart is broken, God's closeness is not a vague reassurance but a concrete presence that sustains. And when the future without pain is promised, it is not a dismissal of the present but a declaration that the present will be healed. The beauty of this tension is that it allows both lament and expectation to coexist, so that mourning is not silenced but gently carried toward its end. In the end, this is the story Scripture tells, a story of a God who draws near in sorrow, who hears the cries of the broken, and who promises a future where tears are no more. It is a story meant to be lived in the midst of pain yet anchored in hope. A story that invites the grieving not to deny their sorrow, but to see it within the larger arc of redemption. And while the journey through loss is long and often lonely, the assurance remains: the broken-hearted are never abandoned, and mourning is not eternal. In the heart of grief lies the seed of a future where joy endures, where pain is undone, and where every tear is remembered only so that it may be gently wiped away forever. As we come to the close of this heartfelt journey, we return to a truth that is both humbling and deeply comforting. While Scripture may not offer us a precise or definitive picture of whether our pets will share eternity with us, it never ceases to emphasize the infinite scope of God's love, His power to restore, and His promise that nothing good He has created will be forgotten or wasted. The Bible assures us that all creation groans in longing for redemption, and in that longing there is a glimmer of hope that the relationships and bonds that matter most to us might not simply vanish but be woven into His eternal plan. It is in this hope that we can find peace, knowing that our stories with those we love, even our cherished pets, may be part of a greater tapestry of love and renewal that stretches far beyond what our human minds can grasp. When we reflect on the joy our pets brought into our lives, the wagging tail at the door, the quiet purr of contentment, the gentle eyes that spoke without words, it becomes clear that these are not accidents or trivial gifts. They are glimpses of God's goodness. They are echoes of His tenderness that reach us through the simplest forms of companionship. To believe that such expressions of love are ultimately meaningless would be to underestimate the depth of God's care for creation. Instead, we are invited to trust that every act of love, no matter how small, has a place in the eternal story He is writing. There is also a profound mystery in this. Heaven, as described in Scripture, is not merely a place but a reality where brokenness no longer exists, where loss is transformed into joy, and where every tear is wiped away. If that is true, then perhaps the love we have shared with our pets, the laughter, the comfort, the loyalty, the healing they offered our hearts might also be preserved and made new in a way that reflects God's promise of wholeness. It may not look exactly as we imagine, yet it could be more beautiful than we dare to dream. This hope does not dismiss our pain in the present, but it invites us to carry our grief with the assurance that it is not the final word. For those who are mourning right now, this perspective can be like a light in the night. It does not erase the ache of an empty bed where a faithful friend once lay, nor does it stop the tears when we remember the way they once greeted us at the door. But it does offer something just as real, the assurance that God sees, that He cares, and that He holds both us and the ones we love in His hands. Whether in ways we can see or in mysteries we cannot yet comprehend, His love will not let go of us, and perhaps it will not let go of them either. As you sit with these thoughts, allow yourself to hold both the sorrow of loss and the hope of eternity together. Remember that grief is not a weakness but a testimony to the depth of your love. And love, by its very nature, is eternal. What you shared with your pet was not temporary, it was an expression of something that reflects the very heart of God. So when the day feels heavy, let that truth carry you. When you wonder if the joy you once knew will return, remember the promise that God is making all things new. And when you look at the stars at night or feel the quiet around you, let hope whisper that perhaps your beloved companion is part of a future far brighter and fuller than you can now imagine. Before we end, I want to say thank you for sharing this moment with me, for allowing this conversation to bring comfort and perspective in the middle of pain. If this story has spoken to your heart, if it has brought you peace or reminded you that you are not alone in your grief, I invite you to support this channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing. By doing, you not only help us continue to create meaningful content, but you also join a community of people who believe that hope, love, and faith still matter in this world. Together, we can remind one another that even in our darkest nights, light still shines. So as we part for now, may you carry with you the assurance that God is close to the brokenhearted, that He sees every tear, and that His love is enough to sustain you. May your memories of your beloved pet be a source of healing, not just sorrow, and may hope rise quietly within you like the dawn. Thank you again for being here, for listening, and for walking through this journey together. And now, wherever you are, may peace settle over you, may comfort find you, and may rest renew your soul. Good night, dear friends, and may tomorrow bring you fresh strength and gentle hope.